What's up, online fam? Welcome to day 3 of segregation, integration, and the civil rights. You may notice I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt. I'm not in Hawaii. Probably a little too early, but I don't care. It's nice out. Treat yourself. Today, we are going to be talking about segregation and the Civil Rights Act. So, to get started, the first thing we need to know is when we spoke during the Civil War, the post-Civil War legislation that was introduced to help progress African Americans in the black community to more equality were implemented. But as you might guess, not everyone was just super hunky-dory, like on board with it. Like, all right, totally equal all of a sudden. There was a lot of resistance, and one of the major resistances came in the form of resisting fair and equal education. So, one of the first things we're going to talk about is this separate but equal quote. The president during this era was one LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, and this just goes to show that you could be like one of the most powerful people in the world, and you're still going to be brought down to your knees by cute puppy cuddles, because puppies and puppers are amazing. Animals in general are amazing. Fight me over it. I don't care. Don't fight me. I'm a pacifist. But this separate but equal quote is anything but equal. The Supreme Court decided in 1896 on the Plessy versus Ferguson case, and what this case was saying is the United States can keep our school systems segregated, separate, a school for white children and a school for black children, so long as the schools are equal. So the white community can have their school here, the black community can have their school here, and all is fine and constitutional if they are equal. Well, I mean, I don't think you have to take more than a couple seconds at this picture. This is one of many schools in the southern United States where black children would have their education. You would not see many white schools, other than the extraordinarily impoverished areas, look anything close to this. So, do you think things were separate? Forcibly so. Do you think things were equal? No, not a chance. So, what happened is in 1954, the Supreme Court, over half of a century later, let's see about my math skills, that's 58 years later, 58 years later, declared that segregated schools were inherently unequal. Definitely so. They are inherently unequal. Some school districts in the South desegregated peacefully. In some other states, however, resistance to desegregate resulted in violence that required federal intervention. You know I'm weird. You know I love cartoons and whatnot. You know I love sports. You know I love video games. So I'm going to take it back to one of my favorites. Remember the Titans. Sorry, I had it pulled up, but then it was all gone. Remember the Titans school scene. S-C-E-N-E. Here it is. Does not look like the white folk are very interested in complying. The first day of school, and the bus is going on into the school, and there are several protesters. Remember, at this point in the movie, if you haven't seen Remember the Titans, it's a movie about a segregated football team. Black players playing with white players. And it's really interesting because these players did not get along at the beginning of the movie, but then they spent a time away at summer camp where they found out, really, they're not very different at all. The pigment of their skin is different, but they bleed red like each other. They get tired from two-a-day practices with each other. They get hungry. They overexhaust themselves. And they're both human beings at the end of the day. So they're confused. We're not going to watch this all, but they have a conversation here, and they're like, man, this is crazy. All of this for Integration, yeah, people were not very pleased. Um, so I wanted to show you this influential young lady. Her name is Ruby Bridges. Absolutely adorable here. She was the first black student in a white school. And people were so upset back then that she had to be escorted by federal marshals to and from school. Here she is walking out of school. Here she is happy to have the opportunity to be treated fairly, as one should. Here she is going into school the following day. Police escorts, federal marshal escorts. Why all the protection? We'll get there. Here is her teacher. She was a one student class. Amazing activist right here. Ruby Bridges' mother was the one that pushed for her to have this opportunity. So ladies, another feather in your cap. Women power, I love it. Ruby's father was not so, he was kind of on the fence about the idea, and it was the mother who made this point. It's not about just our daughter. It's about our entire heritage, and I think that that's really powerful. I think that that's really cool. Here are some protests that were taking place when Ruby was getting ready to go to school. Take a read. Save segregation vote. States' rights. This is the second time states' rights have been brought up when it comes to just like abject racism, ingrained racism. We talked in the Civil War, the number one cause of the Civil War, slavery. Some people might say states' rights, but they wanted states' rights to choose to have slaves. So it's really slavery. And this protest is not about states' rights. It's really about keeping things segregated and keeping things unequal, which is kind of racist. It actually is racist. Again, we've talked about this. Progress happens slowly. So if we go back to the 50s and 60s, this was the norm. This isn't just a very small group of people. A majority, I shouldn't say majority, but a large group of people felt this way about segregation and felt this way about integration. Take a look at this. All I want for Christmas is a clean white school. Now, when I look at this young man, I think to myself, racism is a learned behavior. You're not born inherently racist or inherently with one set of ideas and another set of ideas. He right here is someone who's holding, in my opinion, I think he's holding up a sign, and he's probably at some point in his life been taught to think this way or to feel this way. That's why I always think, guys, and I always tell you, as you guys get older and older and older and more and more and more mature, start thinking for what you believe is right and what you think is fair. Here are more signs. We don't want segregation. We don't want to integrate. People are not pleased. So, integration, segregation, separate but equal, which was inherently not equal. These are some of the civil rights acts that are taking place in the 50s and the 60s. Groups such as the NAACP and CORE, Congress of Racial Equality, the literacy tests were then prevented to keep voting, voting holds there. Literacy tests to prevent African Americans from voting were outlawed, and the number of African Americans voters increased. So be thinking about these things. Be thinking about Martin Luther King, nonviolence. Malcolm X, not okay with just saying he's not going to be violent. Segregation in the Civil Rights Act, with Plessy versus Ferguson, with Ruby Bridges, and with just the idea of integrating for the first time as this new idea. Guys, you've been doing a wonderful job. As always, if you have any questions, let me know. I miss ya. See ya.